Hello, my beautiful souls, and a special, heartfelt welcome to the magnificent and radiant Leos of our cosmic wisdom family. Settle in, breathe deep, and allow the universe to speak directly to the very core of your fiery, courageous heart. Because today, we are not merely talking about celestial alignments or gentle energetic shifts. No, we are pulling back a very dark and very real curtain on a truth that your royal intuition has been roaring about for far too long. There is a reason you have felt a chill in your own kingdom, a shadow falling across your throne. Someone, my dear Leo, paid a price to see you fall. And I do not speak in metaphors. This was not a rumor, not a passing negative thought. This was a cold, calculated transaction, a spiritual contract put out by a familiar hand, designed to extinguish your brilliant light and watch your kingdom crumble. You may have thought you escaped a recent hardship by sheer luck or your own cleverness, but the truth is far more profound. You were not lucky. You were divinely protected. And now, the time has come to understand the battle that was waged in the shadows on your behalf. Have you been feeling this? A sense that your crown has felt a little heavier lately? A feeling that your roar has been caught in your throat? If so, I want you to do something for me right now, to anchor your magnificent energy with our community. In the comments below, I want you to declare your readiness to reclaim your power by typing, "I am the master of my path, and my spirit cannot be broken." And while you are there, if you have not yet joined our beautiful family, please press that subscribe button. We are on this journey together, and I want to ensure you never miss a single cosmic download meant just for you. You have felt it, haven't you, magnificent Leo? That subtle but persistent sense of unease. It's like walking into a room in your own palace and feeling the lingering presence of an intruder. You've sensed a blockage, an invisible resistance against your creative fire, your natural expansion. You, the radiant sun, have felt a strange and unnatural eclipse dimming your light, and you could not name the source. And so perhaps you began to doubt yourself. You, the king or queen of the zodiac, began to wonder, am I being too dramatic? Am I imagining this opposition? Am I losing my touch? Let me be the voice of the cosmos today and tell you with absolute certainty, you are not imagining a thing. Your divine intuition was screaming the truth. There was a time you brushed it off with a confident smile, telling yourself, I'm just in a creative slump, or it's just palace politics. You used your immense strength to push through the unseen friction, to soothe the nameless aches in your proud heart. But today, I invite you to be still, to silence the court, dismiss the advisors, and listen. Listen to the deep, resonant hum of your own soul, for it has been trying to tell you this for so long. Someone with cold and deliberate intent, with an envy so corrosive it curdled their own soul, paid a price to see your reign end. And when I say they paid a price, I want you to understand the gravity of this. This is not a turn of phrase. I am speaking of a tangible exchange, an offering of money, of favors, or the dark and potent currency of a focused curse, all directed toward an energetic assassin. Someone skilled in the dark arts of placing spiritual obstacles, of tangling lifelines, of dimming the very frequency of another's soul. They hired a hitman for your spirit, a saboteur for your destiny. And why? Why would anyone dare to come against the generous, warm-hearted, and powerful Leo? The answer is as simple as it is tragic. They could not bear the brilliance of your light. Your very existence, dear Leo, is a testament to courage, to creativity, to authentic self-expression. You are ruled by the sun. You don't just walk into a room, you illuminate it. You don't just have ideas, you birth entire worlds with your passion. Your light is not just a gentle glow, it is a magnificent, life-giving bonfire. And for those who have chosen to live in the cold, damp shadows of their own fear and inadequacy, your warmth became an unbearable heat. Your radiance became a mirror, so honest and so blinding that it forced them to see the profound darkness within themselves. And rather than face their own reflection, rather than do the sacred work of healing, they chose a far more cowardly path. They decided to shatter the mirror. They tried to put out the sun. What makes this wound so incredibly deep? What makes this betrayal feel like a dagger to your loyal heart is that this person is no stranger. This is not a declared enemy from a rival kingdom. This was someone who resided within your own court, someone you welcomed to your hearth, someone you shared your feasts with, someone whose hands you held and whose wounds you mended when they were cast out by everyone else. You, in your infinite generosity, offered them a place by your fire, and they used that proximity to learn exactly where to throw the water. They didn't stand before you and declare war. Oh no, that would require a courage they simply do not possess. They smiled at you. They applauded your successes, even as their applause echoed with the hollow sound of insincerity. They knew the secret architecture of your heart. They knew your deepest fears, the fear of not being seen, of being forgotten, of your creative well running dry. They knew who you loved, who you trusted with your kingdom's secrets, and they used that sacred knowledge as a map to guide the darkness in. They didn't scream their hatred at you. They whispered your vulnerabilities to someone who could do something far, far worse. I know your noble heart is asking, but why? How could they? You are struggling to comprehend how someone could take the golden light of your trust and forge it into a weapon to be used against you. It is because you, dear Leo, do not understand the anatomy of this kind of insidious, creeping envy. An envy that wears the mask of admiration, a coldness that cloaks itself in the finery of friendship. Your soul only knows the language of loyalty, of courage, of forgiveness. And it is precisely because of your open, trusting nature that the intended fall felt so profoundly deep. The greatest pain was never the attack itself. Your spirit is resilient. You are a warrior. The deepest pain is knowing that you once saved this person. You championed them. You fought for them in days when no one else came to their aid. Your soul knows this with a certainty that requires no earthly proof. You have seen the truth in flashes of intuition, in dreams that left you unsettled, in a deep, gut-wrenching unease that no one else could understand. And if you are hearing these words today, I believe it is because the universe is saying it is time. It is time to name what happened, not to cultivate hatred, for that would be poisoning your own well, but to finally release the heavy burden of this unspoken truth. You do not need to prove a single thing to anyone else. You only need to place a hand over your magnificent heart and whisper to yourself with the full authority of a sovereign. I have seen, I know the truth, and I will not fall. You may never receive a confession. They may never come to you on bended knee, begging for the forgiveness that you would, in your grace, likely grant. But you do not need their apology anymore, because the one thing you needed most, the validation of your own inner knowing, you already possess. And that truth, my dear Leo, is always enough to begin a new and even more glorious reign. Before we continue, I want you to perform a small, sacred ritual. Take a moment and think of the first name or face that floated into your consciousness as I spoke of this silent betrayal. Write it down on a piece of paper. You are not writing it to hold on to hatred. You are writing it to give your soul a tangible place to lay down the weight it has carried for far too long. This is a ritual of release, a farewell to the old version of you, the one who gave their light away unconditionally even when it left them in the dark. From this moment forward, you are no longer that person. You are a soul reawakened, a sovereign reclaiming their throne. And so, the great cosmic question arises. If this person truly did this, if they hired an energetic assassin to dismantle your world, then why are you still here? Why is your kingdom still standing? Why is your light, though perhaps flickering for a moment, now ready to blaze forth once more? The answer, my dear Leo, will come to you not as a whisper, but as a roar of divine light. It is quiet, yet unyielding, ever present, even when unseen. You are always being shielded. Because every time you've narrowly avoided a disaster, every time you've suddenly changed your mind about a project or a person for no logical reason, it was never a coincidence. I want to introduce you to the great and powerful being who has been standing between you and those invisible daggers, a being whose very essence is courage, truth, and divine power, a being without human form, yet who always knows when a royal soul is in need of salvation, the one who carries the sword of light and refuses to let a noble heart fall to the shadows. That one, my dear Leo, is the glorious Archangel Michael, and I want you to understand, with every fiber of your being, that you have never, ever been alone in this fight. Take a moment, beloved Leo. Journey back in your mind. Remember a time when you were on the precipice of a major decision, a business partnership, a creative collaboration, a significant relationship. Everything was prepared. The contracts were ready. The stage was set. But in that final moment, something deep within your solar plexus tightened. A powerful, undeniable feeling, not of fear, but of wrongness. A clear, booming voice in your soul that said, "Do not proceed." And you, trusting that royal instinct, pulled back. That day may have passed without fanfare. No alarms sounded. No one came to thank you for avoiding a catastrophe you never even knew was waiting. But that, my friend, was the moment you were saved. You may have called it your gut feeling or your innate business sense, but perhaps it was something more. Perhaps it was a divine warrior whispering, no, roaring, through your intuition. Someone protecting you from the energetic realms that the human eye cannot perceive. In many spiritual traditions, there are beings known as Dharma protectors, awakened energies whose sole purpose is to guard those who walk a path of truth and light. In angelology, this is the domain of Archangel Michael. He is the commander of the celestial armies, the ultimate champion of light. And for a soul as fiery, courageous, and heart-centered as yours, his presence is like a divine reflection. He is the ultimate king, protecting the king. I believe you have met Michael many times, not with your eyes, but through that inexplicable sense of being steered away from harm. Perhaps you were about to invest your creative energy into a project that would have been stolen or corrupted, but suddenly the funding fell through, a perceived failure that was, in reality, a divine success. Perhaps you were about to sign a lease on a new studio or office, but at the last minute, a detail felt wrong, and you walked away, only to find out later it would have been a financial disaster. Leo, you have been intervened for, not once, but countless times. Not with flashing lights, and grand miracles, but with a silent, powerful protection as fierce as a lioness guarding her cubs. I once worked with a Leo man, a brilliant artist who was about to merge his brand with a seemingly perfect partner. Every time they were set to finalize the deal, a bizarre obstacle would appear. A lost document, a sudden family emergency, a computer system that crashed for no reason. He was frustrated, seeing it as the universe working against him. But in a session, we realized he was being held back. He was being protected. He later discovered this partner had a history of bankrupting his collaborators and stealing their intellectual property. He learned to listen, not just with his ears, but with his entire being, to feel every expansion and contraction of his soul, to hear when his spirit said no, even when his ego was saying yes. Leo, you have a direct line to the divine, a golden cord of intuition that is never wrong. But because you live so much in the world of action and expression, you sometimes overlook these powerful internal signals. Remember this: every time you meet someone and feel an unexplainable drain on your energy, that is your soul speaking. Every time you are about to step onto a new stage, literal or metaphorical, and you suddenly feel a hollowness in your core, that is Archangel Michael saying, "This is not your throne." The perceived rejections you once lamented, the creative blocks that made you weep in frustration, the times you felt utterly alone in your ambition, none of these were punishments. They were the sacred golden walls of a fortress being built around you. Have you ever stopped to consider that what has kept your kingdom intact until today was not only your own formidable strength, but the fact that a celestial warrior has been deflecting the arrows you could not see? If that is true, then you are no longer alone in this. You no longer have to fight in the dark by yourself. You have been, you are, and you will always be protected as long as you remain true to the noble light of your own heart. I don't need you to believe this blindly. I only need you to get still and remember. Remember the times you dodged a bullet without knowing why, the times you changed your path and later realized with a shudder of gratitude what you had avoided. Write those moments down. Keep a journal of these divine interventions. It will become your own sacred text, a reminder that you don't need to see with your eyes to trust that the light walks with you. You don't need to pray in a specific way or speak a certain name. As long as you keep the truth of your own magnificent heart as your guiding principle, Archangel Michael will be there. He will be in the flash of inspiration that saves a project, in the ray of sunlight that warms your face and brings a sudden clarity, in that fleeting feeling that later proves so stunningly accurate it takes your breath away. Do not dismiss the powerful sensations within you, Leo. Your soul is an ancient oracle, one that speaks through the fire of your own being. And the one who protects you does not always come to speak, but to roar, holding back the shadows at the very moment you need it most. And that is why, no matter how desperately they wanted to see you fall, you rose again. Not because you knew how to fight back in their dirty war, but because someone else, a king of light, had taken the arrows for you. Yet, we must acknowledge that not every arrow comes from a declared enemy. Some are loosed by a hand in between, a person who stands in the gray zone, neither for you nor openly against you, a person who smiles at both sides of the conflict. And it is their position, their refusal to choose a side, that has likely wounded your loyal heart the deepest. Because in this journey of uncovering the truth, there is another face you must now look upon. Not the mastermind who paid for the attack, not the divine savior who protected you, but the one who quietly unbolted the gate and allowed the darkness to enter your kingdom. You know, in the grand tapestries of the most profound betrayals, the one who hurts you the most is not always the one who declares their hatred. It is often the one in the middle, the ambiguous one, the one you believed was a safe harbor, only to discover they were the very port through which the enemy ships sailed in. Leo, this is perhaps the hardest truth to accept, not because it is frightening, but because it is so devastatingly close to home. Close enough that you have told yourself, no, it can't be them, I must be mistaken. Close enough that you felt a pang of guilt for even daring to doubt their loyalty. This could be a friend you considered your confidant, a family member who swore to always have your back, a former partner who knew the secret blueprint of your dreams. It was someone who once held your hand while you navigated shattered hopes, someone who heard you speak the vulnerable truths you had never uttered to another soul, someone who made you believe, no matter what happens, they will never hurt me. And yet, that very person became the bridge. They became the conduit between the sacred, hidden chambers of your heart and those who should never have been granted access. They didn't need to speak ill of you, not directly. They only needed to speak, to share a harmless story, to mention an insignificant detail about your latest project, to reveal a private sadness you once entrusted to them in a moment of vulnerability. And the darkness, like a poisonous vapor seeping through a crack in the castle wall, slipped quietly inside. Not all of these people are evil, Leo. Some are simply weak. They are cowards. They never intended to cause you direct harm, but they were not strong enough, not loyal enough to hold the sacred trust you placed in their hands. And in the moments when you needed an ally the most, they chose silence. Silence when others questioned your integrity in hushed tones. Silence when they knew a lie about you was being spun. Silence when their one voice of support could have stopped the spread of poison. Leo, this betrayal did not come with a sword, but with the deafening sound of their deliberate silence. And you, with your generous heart that always seeks to understand, have likely made excuses for them time and time again. They didn't mean any harm. Maybe they were scared. Perhaps I'm just being too sensitive, too demanding of loyalty. But there are actions and inactions that need no further explanation. And there are souls who, even without malicious intent, must still bear the karmic weight of their cowardice when they pass your light into the wrong hands. Have you ever had such a person in your court? A person you thought you could lean on, only to find they were the first to step back when you needed a hand to hold. I know you do not want to call it betrayal. You have always tried to preserve a noble and gracious image of those who once mattered to you. But true forgiveness does not mean pretending the wound doesn't exist. True forgiveness is daring to look straight at what happened, to call it by its true name, so that you can finally, truly walk away from it. You do not need to make a grand public declaration. You do not need to expose anyone. All you need is a new boundary, a boundary built from the steel of your newfound awareness, not from the fragile material of your old wound. Starting today, let your royal heart choose again. Not everyone who was granted early access to your kingdom deserves a lifelong residency. Not everyone who knew your vulnerabilities has earned the right to touch the magnificent light of your healing. Setting a boundary is not an act of coldness, magnificent Leo. For you, it is a supreme act of self-love. It is you, the sovereign, deciding who is and is not worthy of the warmth of your sun. Write down their name if you must, or simply write down the feeling of disappointment you carried when you stood before them. Write it not to condemn, but to finally close the gate they left open for far too long. And then, gently but firmly, take the key to your kingdom back from their hands, because your light no longer has room for half-hearted allies. It does not need more of those who claim innocence, yet always seem to be standing on the wrong side of the battle line. Your kingdom no longer needs anyone else to speak for it. You have found your own voice again, and it is time for your soul to decide who is truly worthy to stay. This is not an easy process, but you are already doing it. Each time you step away from a lukewarm, uncertain bond, you are protecting your kingdom from a future siege. And as you begin to choose your inner circle again, this time from a place of profound awakening, a quiet miracle begins to unfold. You don't have to search for it. A new light will come. New people will arrive at your gates, not courtiers seeking to manipulate or control, but fellow sovereigns seeking to walk beside you, gently, honestly, and wholly. Because even if you have been pushed out of old toxic circles, a new kingdom is opening up for you. A place where you no longer have to dull your shine to make others comfortable. A place that no longer demands your silence as the price of admission. And it is from this new, elevated throne that you will see with crystal clarity what the ones who hurt you are now quietly facing. There are some battles, my dear Leo, that you do not need to fight. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to speak a single word. You don't need to prove how deeply you were wounded. The universe, with its perfect and immutable laws, always remembers. The soul always keeps score. And the law of karmic balance never ever forgets the way home. Perhaps you have looked upon them and thought, they're fine, they got away with it, they are still laughing, still succeeding. But the truth is, what they hide in the dungeons of their own soul is not for public viewing. They live with it every single day. The one who hurt you, the one who turned away, the one who used your trust to open the door for darkness, is now beginning to face the consequences. Not with you, but with the very energy they sowed into the world. No one needs to punish them. The silence of your magnificent light, your withdrawal of that life-giving warmth, is enough to send their world into a chilling darkness. Do you remember the sleepless nights you endured, pacing the floors of your castle, wrestling with wounds no one could see? They are beginning to have nights just like that. Do you remember the feeling of being misunderstood, your intentions twisted, your power questioned? They are now touching layers of a profound loneliness they cannot even name. This is not because you wished it upon them. Your heart is too noble for that. It is because that is how the universe works. Gently, slowly, but with the precision of a master archer. And the true miracle in all of this is that you don't even need to look back. You no longer need to wonder, do they regret it? You no longer need to wait for an apology that may never come, because what matters is no longer their story. It is yours, that you are still here, more whole and more radiant than ever, that the brilliant sun within you, in the end, could never be extinguished, that you chose not to let their darkness shape the magnificent person you were always destined to become. Leo, your soul did not come here to engage in petty revenge. You came here to be reborn from the ashes of what once seemed impossible to heal. You are a phoenix, my friend. You came here to prove that a heart betrayed can still love with magnificent courage, that a soul deceived can still trust its own intuition, and that a light once despised by the shadows, can still shine without ever again asking for permission. They once tried to silence your roar, tried to make you lose faith in your own sovereignty. But now, that very faith has become your salvation. The generosity they mistook for weakness has become your unshakable strength. The silence you once endured has become the fertile ground for the greatest awakening of your soul. Take a deep, powerful breath, Leo. Feel it. Does your chest not feel lighter now? Does your face feel softer, yet stronger? Does your heart no longer need to brace itself for an unseen attack? If the answer is yes, then you are exactly where you are meant to be. You are no longer who you were. You no longer need the court that once excluded you. You no longer have to wait for someone to understand your brilliance before you are accepted. You have accepted yourself first, and that is the only coronation that has ever truly mattered. They may be falling into the consequences of their own making, but you are rising, not to be higher than them, for that is not your concern. You are rising higher than the version of you who once dimmed your own light for fear of making others feel insecure. I know you are still tender in places. That is not a weakness. That is the sacred space where the light flows back into you. It is proof that you can still feel, still trust, still love. And my dear magnificent Leo, I want you to write something down for yourself and yourself alone. Exhale deeply and write these words. I have seen the truth. I forgive what was, and I choose to walk forward and rule from the light. Write it like a royal decree. Write it like a ticket out of a memory that no longer belongs in your kingdom. Write it like a final farewell to those who hurt you, but who no longer hold any power over your heart. Write it and then step forward into your future. No looking back, no regrets, because what is coming for you now is a life of glorious purpose, a light no longer hidden, a chapter written entirely by you, with a voice that no longer trembles, and a heart that no longer needs permission to be as vast and as brilliant as it truly is. Thank you, my dear Leo, for staying with me until this very moment. Thank you for not letting pain tarnish your golden heart. Thank you for choosing the light, even when everything around you was cloaked in shadow. I wish for your coming days to be as radiant as the summer sun, as strong as the heart of a lion, and as full as a soul that has just reclaimed its rightful throne. May it be that the ones who come to you now will never require you to sacrifice your crown to be loved, but will love you because of the magnificent way you wear it. Thank you, Leo. You are never, ever alone. The universe has seen it all, and the sun within you is shining bright once more.